Welcome back to Jim's Jeeps. Today we're going to take a look at this YJ and the electrical system, primarily the battery cables. I want to show you how you can fix your own battery cables, make your own battery cables, save a lot of money at the same time. Thanks for joining us today. So Jeeps are not known for really great electrical systems. In fact, some of it's terrible. This Jeep is no exception. I've had some problems in the past with particularly grounding issues and just distribution of power off the battery itself. I don't have anything fancy on here. There are no winches or anything else like that. But when I did put the fuel injection system in it, I did notice there were a number of points in the grounding of the battery system itself that really needed some attention. And so I'm going to go over with you today kind of some easy ways to fix that, and I'll show you some tools, some of the ends that you can put on, and some of the ways that you can save money by doing the job yourself. Now, first and foremost, the ground on the engine block is critical. And that's that bolt you see in the center of the frame here. If that's corroded, or some of the wires are kind of pulling away from it, or it's been loosened up by somebody else, maybe working on your vehicle or something like that, without that ground, absolutely nothing's going to work. That is the master ground for the engine, and that is what is basically the negative side to the starter, and the negative side pretty much to the entire electrical system. There are some other grounds that feed off of that, and those are the smaller wires coming off of there. Those go into the firewall and service the instrument cluster and some gauges and things like that. But more than just the whole body being a ground, this is really where you want to focus your time if you have electrical issues, to see if your engine ground is causing you problems. And that on a 258 anyway, and on a 4.0 as well, is right to the right rear if you're sitting in the vehicle, or the spark plug side of the engine, and you'll find that stud in the engine block right there, and you want to make sure that that's tight and clean and everything else. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about the actual cables themselves. On the right side here, I believe this is 2 gauge. Yep, 2 gauge. And it's got a PVC jacket on it, which is a stiffer jacket. And it's all copper in the middle. When you're shopping around for cables, don't get anything but copper. There's some aluminized cable out there, and some other stuff, alloy cable, things like that. Go with copper. You're really not going to help yourself out by saving a couple bucks and going with a cheaper cable. This one has a silicone jacket on it. It's actually listed as a welding cable, and this is the 4 gauge that's on the vehicle from the factory. Not this particular cable, but the same wire gauge. These are fine also for stock stuff. If you don't have a winch, if you don't have any high amperage draw, things on your vehicle, particularly winches. If you have LED lighting and so forth, that is not a big current draw. That'll work fine on the stock wiring. But if you do need to upgrade and you're going to do it anyway, you might consider going with the 2 gauge. And very simply, and the easiest way to describe it is, if you have a larger cable, just like a garden hose, it can deliver more water at the same time. If you have a smaller garden hose, it won't deliver as much water. And that's pretty much the same with electricity, only totally different. So let's take a look at how we can terminate some of these and some of the terminations you might want to do on your vehicle. I kept this old negative terminal to show you how stretched out and kind of messed up these things can get. it wasn't because it was dirty or not making any kind of contact. It was just really stretched out, and the bolt, you can see, is all kind of sideways, and you can't get a good bite on it to get you any more tension on it. And it was time to replace it. This was a factory one, and you can see the cable here on the left side. This piece of the cable was actually still okay, but there was a hole in the jacket of the ground cable itself, and when water got in there over a period of time, what happens is that water will wick down the cable and eventually start to corrode. Now, copper doesn't really corrode, it just kind of gets that green gunk color on it, and that actually starts to act like an insulator. And so what happens is you got most of the voltage going down just a few of these wires that make up this bundle right here, and that causes the cable to heat up. In some cases, the cable could melt apart, and it's just not good. It's not good for the electrical system, and it's not good for anything connected to the electrical system, for that matter. So you want to double check and make sure your cables aren't corroded. Usually by looking at the ends or inspecting the jacket, you can tell if there's a break and you got water or dirt or junk in there. Over a period of time, and a longer period of time, not a short period of time, but a longer period of time, that's going to cause you problems with the electrical flow through the cable. Now, when you're working on the cables, either reusing an older cable or getting a spool of cable like I have over here from online, you want to use new connectors on the end. They're all shiny, you know, they're all different gauges and things, and this is a assortment kit. I think I got it on Amazon, I don't remember. And then you want to crimp these terminals on properly. You see a lot of guys online drilling a hole here in the shoulder of this terminal and dropping solder down in there after they've crimped it. You can do that, that's okay. I've really never found anything where that really helps a lot. If you have this sealed up with the heat shrink tubing around the base of the connector, the water's not going to get in there, and you're going to have plenty of contact coverage through this small pipe. I've seen other guys too get copper tubing and kind of, you know, roll your own. That's okay too. Those will work just fine as well. Just make sure you got a good grade copper if you're going to make your own. To crimp the end, you want to get a hydraulic crimper. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. This is a larger kit, it has many different die sizes on it, but you can go to Harbor Freight and get one for, I think, like 25-30 bucks. That'll do, you know, it just has a few dies in it, and that'll get you by just fine. You can save a lot of money by doing that, certainly. This one was a little bit more expensive, but I plan on doing a lot of work over the years, and I just want to get a good quality tool. This one's a Temco, TH0005 is the kit. Real nice, and I've used it about 3 or 4 times now, and it's worked out real well. So let's get a piece of cable, and I'll show you how to crimp an end on it and how to finish it up. Every application is going to be a little bit different. Make sure you have the right size connectors for the right size cable, and you're pretty much putting it back the way the engineers originally designed it, such that you have good positive flow in the right areas. So let's break out a small piece of cable here, and I'll show you how to put an end on it. Okay, when you go to strip the end off of it, you want about a ½ inch or so, maybe a little less than ½ inch. This is probably a little bit too much, but I want to show you this is all stranded, and when I was saying before, when the water and junk gets down in here, these will all start to corrode green on a copper cable. And if you have an aluminum cable or something else, you get aluminum oxide in there and things like that. That'll stop the cable from carrying as much electricity as it was designed for. So you want to find a connector that will fit on here real easy, and you want to get all of the little strands of wire in there like that, and get it on to where the tip of the wire is right up against this bending shoulder at the top of the connector. And then get the right size die from your kit, size it up, and you want to squeeze it down. And I have already in my tool here the right crimp die, so I'm going to get that set up and I'll show you how the tool works. Okay, I've got you set up in a little tripod here. So here's the business end of this hydraulic compressor crimper. This thumb screw here, and they're all about the same. This thumb screw here, you can tighten it down, and that'll allow pretty much the jack to push up on this die, and it's going to guillotine the end of the cable in between these two die and make a good solid connection. So let's see if we can actually demonstrate that here. You want to make sure you're pushing on the wire into the end of the connector. Get it started. There's a lot of slack in there because this tool will take much larger cables as well. And you want to go right below where the shoulder of the bend is here on this connector, and take up a little bit more slack here. It's still kind of loose in there. It's okay. Cable's in there tight. And then really clamp down on it until it won't go anymore. And then loosen the thumb screw, it backs out, and if you can get it out of the die, you'll see you have a perfectly crimped connector ready to go. Now, like I said before, you don't want to leave it like this. You want to get this gap covered up. You don't want water or anything else getting down in there, and so get a piece of shrink tubing and slide it over the end. Make sure it's not all wrinkled like I just did that one. Keep sliding it down till about right there, and then apply heat to this. You can use a little torch, cigarette lighter, heat gun, whatever you want, and that will shrink down, and between the jacket of the wire and the end of this cable here provide excellent protection against water and anything else getting down in there. Different size cables exactly the same way. Obviously a different size die, different size connectors, and different size cable, but that's how you make a battery cable end. And you may say, how do I know I need new battery cables? Well, check them out, look at them. If they're frayed, if the posts are dirty up top here, this is a boat style lug here. In this one, I'm not a big fan of these. A lot of people will take those and crimp the cable down in the middle here. That'll get you by emergency roadside repair, trail repair, whatever. Not good for the long term for the reasons I stated. You want to get a cover on the end of the cable, and I'm breaking my own rules right here because this one doesn't have shrink wrap on it. I gotta go back and fix that. The other way you can tell is if you have like slow starts, right? When you crank it over, if it's just and you might think, well, gee, it's the starter, and so you swap out the starter, and so you still have the same problem. It wasn't the starter. It was most likely either the ground cable or the positive cable going to the starter. Probably has corrosion in it. Probably is not, producing enough electricity the way it was designed to do. So that's what I have for you today. Easy job, minimal cost. You can possibly even borrow one of those hydraulic crimpers from an auto parts store. Not really sure about that. But you know, if you were to buy a whole cable kit online, you're talking a couple $100, and you could do this job yourself for, you know, probably 60, 75 bucks, not including the cost of the tool. So maybe $100. So I hope this helped you out today. If it did, please consider liking and subscribing, and we will see you on the next video. Thanks for joining Jim's Jeeps today. See you soon.